What you're looking at right here is 3 months colossal work. What you're witnessing is my recently completed LEGO Union Pacific Big Day, finished on June the 12th of this year. So that's practically 10 days from now on the day of this recording, that being June the 22nd. From the tip of the cowcatcher all the way to that rear coupler, this thing officially measures 33 inches long. Just the locomotive itself is 23 inches long, meaning that the tender is 10 inches long. Immediately, you will notice basic details like the cowcatcher up front here, the massive deck at the front, and that's where the number plate should be. You need to add a decal. That's the headlight, number plates, bell. Oh, that's the twin smokestack. That's the whistle. So the steam domes, sand dome right here, safety valves. I don't know what this part is. 10-stud wide cab, steam pipes, and those big massive cylinders. And of course, the running gear. The tender is pretty basic for the most part. I mean, you can see there's no ladders on the sides because I ran out of ladders. You can see the tender includes important details like the coal load up here and behind here. And I've even filled the tender to the brim with some small black pieces to represent the coal. Such piece gives an example of what's exactly in there. More onto it in a bit. Aside from detail though, the functionality is the most important part of a locomotive. Now what you're seeing here is the cylinders for this locomotive. And what about this part that's swinging out? That's actually supposed to be the bottom half of the cylinders. Now, yes, I know you'll think that's crazy because cylinders don't bend through curves, but I couldn't find a more simplistic idea in my head. I mean, I could have used a more complex cylinder design, but that would have taken up a lot of time and would have made things a bit complicated. Sorry. And plus how I've laid the running gear out. Yeah. So true, not historically accurate with how the cylinders are laid out, but the important part is that it's functional. And you can see we've also got these flexible bars right here, or tubes I should say. I actually borrowed this one off my Hogwarts Express here, that being the 2010 Hogwarts Express. But fortunately I had a couple of spare pieces around to replace that handlebar, so it's all good. Now this is actually meant to represent the steps here. I mean, there's no air vents right here on the front, but then again, this is a pretty basic model because I've never built a locomotive like this before. Not to mention, this is also the first Western American steam locomotive I've ever made, because as my 1225 over there, that's an Eastern American steam locomotive since it's from the Marquette Railroad, which is from Michigan. And then there's my CN 7470. Anyway, but that's a Canadian one. So, yeah. This right here, that's the leading bogie. I mean, pretty simple at first, until I had to add the bottom half of the cylinders here. And you can see on the cowcatcher, and if I show up close, you should be able to see how I made the cowcatcher. First time I've ever made a cowcatcher this complex. I mean, this is what the original cowcatcher used to be. Yeah, but it didn't look historically accurate due to its looks, so I made this custom one instead. You can see this peg is also pushed back a bit as well. just to help squeeze the leading truck just a bit further in, as well, so that it's not too terribly separated away from the driving wheels. I mean, hey, it does also help if it pulled it more in, so that it's not hitting the cowcatcher when it's going through curves, which is why the cowcatcher is also sticking out very far. Then again, maybe not historically accurate for the cosmetics, but it's functional. The trailing bogie underneath the firebox is the biggest trailing bogie I've ever made. I mean, it may not be any longer than the bogies I've used on the my first Polar Express coach, which are exactly the same length as this thing in terms of studs, but this one's a bit taller due to these pieces here, which are obviously supposed to help support the weight of this enormous firebox. Now, true, you would technically see a bit of a gap on the real locomotives, but I'm not too worried about that. But to keep it historically accurate and a bit unnoticeable, just built it all in black. The rear engine unit is pretty much the only thing that's attached to the boiler. Said rear engine unit consisting of the cylinders, and of course the chassis for the rear set of driving wheels. I mean, you can see that's where the pin for this set would go, and this is intentionally designed to function like a typical Mallet or simple articulated locomotive. Moving on to the cab, which is 10 studs wide, the widest cab I've ever made. Well, not that it was my idea. It's because other people were using this 10 stud wide design for their big boy, so I decided to use that as well. Because then again, this thing is an absolute monster. I mean, there's a very good reason it's the world's largest steam locomotive. Don't get me wrong there. Now, the cab doesn't match the proportions of the big boy's cab exactly, as in the real locomotives. But hey, it's functional. Then again, this is a basic model, because I've never built a cab like this before. And by the way, that's the throttle here. Oh, boy. Ah. Now, there's not really too much in the cab. I mean, I didn't really get to the cab until I was practically finished with the exterior. I mean, so there's really not much cab detail. I hope to add more in the future. I mean, I've still added such cab detail like the engineer seat right here. That's the reverse lever. And some steam gauge, pressure gauges right here. Or speedometer for one of them. And the firebox is actually salvaged from my 2018 Hogwarts Express. I broke it up a long time, and then it was on my Great Western 5101 class tank locomotive for a while. But then I ultimately took the firebox design off of that and just put it in here to help create a realistic fire effect. I mean, the fire is also exposed here, which is why I used a coal tender. More onto that later. And I think that just leaves us with one question. Shape of the boiler. And the skeleton of it. As you can see here, here in the boiler, this is actually the very first boiler of this design that I've ever made. Unlike on my 1225 where I just used some arches, or on my 7470 where I just used some round pieces like that. But they're 4 studs wide in diameter. Or on my Hogwarts Express where it's, okay, you get the idea. Okay, but this is a pretty new boiler design for me. I mean, other people were using this boiler design, so I thought I'd just use this one. You can see there's Technic bricks on the inside here. And of course some plating being attached there with these pins. And it's basically running all the way throughout the boiler. For the layers, bottom layer there's a 6x12. Well, for the smoke box area, that is. Followed by some Technic bricks, you know, with the holes. And then there's another layer with 2 of these slabs placed on top of each other. And then there's the middle layer, which has more Technic bricks. And at the front here, there's obviously the hole for the smoke box door to be pinned onto. Followed by and another 2 layers of slabs, another layer of Technic bricks running throughout the boiler, and then finally the 6x12. So this is running all the way throughout the boiler. In a way, the width of the boiler at the top is 6 studs wide. The height of the boiler is also 6 studs wide as well, just to help keep the boiler as circular as possible. So looking at the from the side, it should be pretty clear of what the outer layer is made up of. Not the same for the firebox though. Now you'll notice that the firebox looks to be 3 studs tall. That's correct. You're not wrong, since it runs halfway up the boiler. When I take it off, it's a bit of an illusion right here. Same thing on the other side. So pretty much underneath all of this, there's 4x6s, 2 sets of 2x4s, and a bit of a black plating. On top, there's a strip of black running up the top layer, and then the rest is just covered up by light gray pieces to make the shape of the firebox. Keep it pushed with the width of the boiler at its max, or the diameter. You can also see a bit of an idea of how the firebox is made. Honestly, I gotta say the firebox was the most complicated part of the boiler, but in the end it wasn't really that too hard to get around. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the locomotive. Let's get this beast back on the rails. Oh yeah, by the way, this pin can come up pretty easily if you're not I'm not holding up the front set. The front set's so heavy it might possibly fall out on you. Moving on to the tender, you can see the big thing that stands out on it is its 410O chassis. This is a centipede tender, or 14-wheeled tender. Unlike typical tenders like you'd see on my 1225, where it's being held up by bogies, or on or like on this passenger car. Instead, there's basically 5 coupled wheels. In front of them is a 4-wheeled truck, which is on a pivot, which acts as leading wheels to help guide the truck through curves. These tenders do have advantages and disadvantages. The most notable advantage is that they're able to hold up a lot of weight from a vehicle on water. In question are medium-sized driving wheels from Big Bend Bricks. These are the smallest non-flanged wheels that Bend Bricks has to offer. They do appear a bit bigger than wheels. Not really worried about it that much. As for the body of the tender, it's pretty basic for the most part, as in the build. For the part here, you can actually see there's a thing on the bottom part. The boiler is attached a bit differently. Basically attached using those pieces, and these pieces basically just run all the way, well, pretty much all the way throughout the tender up until this very bit. It got flushed perfectly with the holes of the tender. Decided to go from there. I mean, since I also used a lot of pretty much almost all my Technic pieces just to finish off the boiler of the big boy. So, along here, you can see there's the opening, of course, on the sides, which the Union Pacific used for these tenders. You'll also see some float pieces right here. The opening does go down a bit, but it was a bit tricky to create. What I just did was just place these up as one stud in, and then just rounded them using these float pieces, raising the first one up by a stud to help create this sloping effect. Looking at the top of the tender, you can see there's the coal load right here, and there's another coal load right here. And what's most impressive is that you can see there's one of these pieces right here. These these bending sloping pieces. And behind all that is the coal load for this locomotive. I mean, the pieces I mentioned earlier, maybe 1x2s or 1x1s like this, or sometimes these 2x2s with some extra features like a claw or things like that. I mean, I didn't really need these pieces anyway, so I just want to use those. I mean, plus it was nice because, I mean, these pieces hey, puts in some detail. Now, I could have just made this an oil tender, but I wanted to make this a coal tender for various reasons. But firstly, let's reattach the tender onto the chassis right here. It's much simpler to put on, too. Boom. Considering the fact that I've never made a locomotive like this before, I am rather impressed with how it turned out, despite the fact on the that the cylinders could use some work, along with the steam pipes and the cab. Oh yeah, and the exposed wheels, but that's pretty much the only problems I have with this locomotive. Overall, this is the happiest I've ever been with pretty much any locomotive I've ever made. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely press that like button and subscribe to this channel. And if you're already subscribed, don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that way you won't miss any future uploads like this. Peace out.